Welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive. This time, we're going to be talking about tropical forest seed. We've got a chapter here from a book all about it.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, so, those tiny packages of potential that hold the future of entire forests.
Hmm.
It's, I think it's really fascinating, the whole process.
Yeah.
Um, and so we're going to learn how scientists and conservationists collect those seeds, but also all while making sure they're minimizing damage to the trees
Right.
and ensuring the highest quality.
It's not as straightforward as you might think.
Oh, really?
Yeah, to get those high quality seeds that
Okay.
can actually sprout and thrive.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. It's not like you can just go and grab a handful and hope for the best.
Exactly, exactly.
Our source material dives deep into the importance of timing.
Yeah.
What's the big deal about when you collect the seeds?
Well, imagine you're trying to collect seeds from a tree that drops all of its seeds in a single day,
Okay.
like the dipterocarps.
What are those?
The dipterocarps. They're in Southeast Asia.
Oh, okay.
And so if you miss that window,
Oh, wow.
you miss out on an entire generation of potential trees.
Oh, my gosh. That's a pretty extreme example.
It is.
So what are some of the things that seed collectors have to look out for to make sure they're getting the best quality seeds?
Um, well, one of the first things to understand is how the seeds are released.
Okay.
So some species have pods or capsules that burst open and they scatter their seeds, far and wide.
Oh, cool.
And that's called dehiscence.
Dehiscence, okay.
But then others have fruits that fall to the ground intact and the seeds are still inside.
I see.
And that's called indehiscence.
So, I mean, I guess if you're dealing with a dehiscent species, you've got to be really on it.
You got to be
You
ready.
got to be ready to get those seeds before they fly off.
Exactly.
What about those visual cues you mentioned? How do you know if a seed is actually mature and ready to go?
Think of it like looking for ripeness in a fruit.
Oh, okay.
So color changes are a big one.
Yeah.
So you might see the seed pods or fruits turn from green to brown
Okay.
or develop those vibrant reds or yellows.
Like a mango turning from green to that beautiful yellow.
Exactly. You might also see the fruit drying out or the seed coat hardening. Sometimes you can even see those dispersal mechanisms developing like wings on a seed that will help it catch the wind,
Oh, cool.
or fleshy fruit pulp that attracts animals to help spread the seeds.
So it's like you're really looking at the whole plant,
Yes.
working towards that moment
That moment of dispersal.
of dispersal.
And you have to be in sync with
You
it.
got to be in sync.
Yeah. And so if you miss that window
Oh, no.
of peak maturity, you risk collecting seeds that haven't fully developed.
Gotcha.
Or on the other end, seeds that have started to deteriorate.
And then they're no good.
Exactly.
I imagine there are some seeds that are just like inherently more challenging to collect than others.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's these tricky seeds called recalcitrant seeds, and they can't be dried and stored like most seeds.
So you have to plant them right away.
Pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah, think of them as delicate snowflakes.
Wow. Okay.
They need to be sown soon after collection,
Gotcha.
which makes them a real challenge for conservation.
I bet. Oh, wow. So timing is everything. We've got to pay attention to how the seeds are dispersed, look for those visual cues of maturity, and be mindful of all these kind of species-specific quirks.
Mm-hmm.
But what about the time of year?
Yeah.
Does that play a role too?
It absolutely does.
Okay.
Most species have distinct fruiting seasons, and collecting during peak season is like hitting the jackpot for genetic diversity.
Why is peak season so important for genetic diversity?
Well, think of it like a big pollen party.
Okay.
During peak flowering,
Mhm.
there's more opportunity for cross-pollination, which means more mixing and mingling of genes, which leads to offspring that are more adaptable and resilient.
So the seeds then.
Ex-
Okay. So it's like you're trying to maximize the genetic mixing to ensure the future generations of trees are as strong as possible.
Exactly.
But what if you can't collect during peak season for some reason?
Yeah, it's not ideal, but sometimes you have to work with what you've got.
Right.
And in those cases, it's crucial to document everything meticulously. So noting the date, time, and any observations about the maturity of the seeds can help scientists understand the potential limitations of those seeds.
So it's like a detective's log. You're trying to piece together the story of those seeds.
Exact.
This is all fascinating. Who knew there was so much to consider when collecting seeds?
Yeah. It's more than just picking seeds off a tree. It's really about understanding the life cycle of these forest giants and working with nature's rhythms to ensure their future.
Wow. So we've tackled timing, but what about the actual collection process itself?
Right.
How do you collect these seeds without harming the trees or jeopardizing future seed crops?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Let's dig into that in the next part of our deep dive.
Mhm.
Okay, so we've talked all about the delicate dance of timing
Right.
when it comes to collecting seeds from these tropical forests.
Yeah.
But now I'm kind of curious about the actual collection process. I mean, it can't just be like plucking fruit from branches, can it?
You're absolutely right. It's kind of like, think of it like this. We've been invited to this incredible seed party,
Okay.
but we need to be respectful guests.
Oh, I like that.
Right. We want to collect enough seeds for research and for conservation,
Yeah.
but we don't want to disrupt the forest's rhythm.
I love that analogy of the respectful guests.
Yeah.
So how do we become those respectful guests? What are some of the techniques involved in actually getting those seeds down from the canopy?
Well, it really depends on the species and the environment. Sometimes it's as simple as just gathering fallen fruit from the forest floor.
Okay.
Other times it requires a little bit more ingenuity.
Okay, so let's talk about some of those more adventurous collection methods. What comes to mind?
Well, picture this. You're in a dense rainforest,
Okay.
staring up at this towering tree
Hmm.
laden with ripe fruit,
Okay.
way up in the canopy. You might use a slingshot
Whoa.
to launch a weighted line over a sturdy branch.
Oh, wow.
And then you can use that line to hoist yourself up.
Wow. So it sounds pretty intense.
Yeah, it can be. Or, for even taller trees, you might even set up a rope system with pulleys,
Really?
almost like a mini zip line to transport equipment and collected seeds.
Oh, my goodness. That sounds like it requires a lot of skill
It does.
and a bit of a daredevil spirit.
For sure. Yeah, and obviously safety is a huge priority in those situations.
I can imagine. So let's say you've successfully navigated the canopy.
Right.
You've collected those precious seeds. What happens next?
So that's where the real care begins.
Okay.
Handling those seeds properly is absolutely crucial for maintaining their viability
Hmm.
and making sure they have the best chance of germinating and growing into a healthy tree.
All right, so walk me through this process. What are the key steps in handling these freshly collected treasures?
Well, the first order of business is often cleaning.
Okay.
Seeds come with a lot of extras,
Okay.
like bits of fruit pulp or leaves or twigs,
Right.
even, tiny insects hitching a ride.
It's like its own little ecosystem,
Exactly.
just on the seed.
So while that's fascinating in its own right, we want to remove that extra material for a couple of reasons.
Okay, why?
First, it can harbor pests or diseases
Oh, that makes sense.
that could harm the seeds. Second, all that debris can make storage more difficult,
Gotcha.
and it can even affect the seed's ability to germinate properly.
So you're really trying to give them the best possible start in life.
Exactly.
So how do you clean them without damaging them?
Well, there's no one-size-fits-all approach. Sometimes it's simple, like gently rubbing the seeds to remove that pulp.
Okay.
Other times you might use water or air separation techniques.
Oh, wow.
And some seeds even have special adaptations that help them naturally shed those extra bits.
So it's like these scientists are like seed surgeons,
Yes,
delicately tending to their patients.
it's a very fitting analogy.
That's cool.
Oh,
Okay,
and-
so once the seeds are all cleaned up,
Right.
what's next?
We have to think about drying.
Drying.
Yeah.
Right, that's super important for long-term storage.
Exactly. And prevent things from getting moldy and yucky.
Exactly. But it's a bit more nuanced
It is.
than just leaving them out in the sun.
Right. Different seeds have different moisture requirements.
Right.
Some seeds, like those pesky recalcitrant ones that we mentioned earlier,
Uh-huh.
they can't be dried at all.
They're like the divas of the seed world.
They really are. They need to be sown soon after collection.
Right. Okay.
But even for seeds that can be dried,
Yeah.
we need to find that sweet spot for moisture content,
Oh, okay.
because too much moisture and they might rot or germinate prematurely. Too little and the embryo inside could be damaged.
Oh, so it's a delicate balancing act.
Yeah. It really is.
Wow.
And scientists use specialized equipment to measure the moisture levels in the seeds and to carefully control that drying process to ensure optimal viability.
Okay.
And that might involve air drying in a well-ventilated space,
Okay.
or using a fan to circulate the air, or even employing more sophisticated techniques like freeze drying
Wow. Okay.
for particularly sensitive seeds.
It's amazing how much science and technology goes into something like drying seeds.
I know.
It's incredible.
It's amazing. It's a real testament to the dedication of these researchers who are so passionate about preserving these vital genetic resources.
So now we've got our meticulously cleaned and dried seeds.
Right.
What's next in their journey? Where do they go?
Well, that depends on their destiny.
Yeah.
Some might be destined for nurseries where they'll be carefully nurtured into seedlings for reforestation projects.
Okay.
Others might be used in research to study germination rates or genetic diversity,
Right.
or even the impacts of climate change on seed viability.
Wow. It's incredible to think that these tiny little seeds hold so much potential
You do.
for the future of forests and our planet.
Yes, they really are like miniature time capsules.
Yeah.
Packed with genetic information that has evolved over millennia.
Oh, wow.
And some of those seeds are destined for a very special kind of time capsule, a seed bank.
Oh, yeah. Seed banks. I've always been fascinated by that idea.
Get it too.
Tell me more about those.
So imagine this, like a vast underground vault
Okay.
filled with shelves upon shelves of carefully labeled containers,
Okay.
each holding a treasure trove of seeds from all over the world.
Wow.
That's a seed bank. It's a global effort to safeguard the genetic diversity of plant life for future generations.
Like a botanical Fort Knox.
Exactly.
What kinds of seeds are stored in these banks?
Well, they house a vast collection from common crops
Oh, sure.
to rare and endangered species.
Wow.
It's a way to preserve the genetic blueprints of plant life, even in the face of things like habitat loss or climate change.
So it's like an insurance policy for the future of plant biodiversity.
Exactly. Seed banks are such a powerful tool for conservation
Yeah.
and a testament to the foresight and collaboration of scientists all around the world.
This is so inspiring. So we've covered a lot of ground here, from the challenges of collecting seeds high in the canopy
Right?
to the meticulous process of handling and storing them. But there's one more aspect of seed collection that I'm particularly curious about,
Okay.
and that's the ethical consideration.
Oh, yeah. That's an essential part of the conversation.
Yeah.
Seed collection, especially in biodiversity-rich areas like tropical forests, really raises some important ethical questions about things like ownership, intellectual property rights, and the potential for exploitation.
Right, because it's not just about the science.
Yeah.
It's about respecting the communities and cultures connected to these forests.
Mm-hmm.
Let's dive into those ethical considerations in the final part of our deep dive. All right, so we've been talking about all of the ins and outs of collecting those seeds. But now we need to shift gears a little bit and talk about the ethics of seed collection.
It is a crucial aspect,
Mm-hmm.
especially when we're talking about tropical forests, which are often home to, indigenous communities who have such a deep and long-standing connection
Yeah.
to these ecosystems.
It's their land,
Exactly.
their heritage,
It's their heritage, and they've been stewards of these forests for generations.
and they probably hold a wealth of knowledge
True.
about the plants
Yeah.
and how to, use them.
Their uses, their propagation, and their sustainable harvesting practices that have been passed down through centuries.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So how do we ensure that seed collection is done in a way that respects those communities?
Well, the key is meaningful collaboration, not just consultation.
Okay.
And so it starts with recognizing that indigenous communities aren't just stakeholders, they are rights holders.
Right.
They have the right to determine how their resources are used and to benefit from any research or commercial activities that come from those resources.
So it's more than just getting permission
It is.
to collect the seeds.
Exactly.
It's about building genuine partnership.
Partnerships.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And making sure those communities are actively involved
Yes.
in the whole process.
It means seeking their free, prior, and informed consent
Okay.
before any collection takes place.
Gotcha.
It means engaging in open and transparent dialogue
Right.
about the goals of the research
Yeah.
and the potential benefits
Oh.
and the risks.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
And it means ensuring that any benefits, whether those are financial or in terms of knowledge sharing, are equitably distributed.
Can you give me a real world example of what that might look like?
Sure. So imagine a scenario where a pharmaceutical company
Okay.
discovers a plant in the rainforest
Okay.
with medicinal properties, thanks to the guidance of local knowledge.
Right.
An ethical approach would involve
Yeah.
establishing an agreement where that indigenous community
Mm-hmm.
receives a fair share of any profits
Okay.
generated from the development of a new drug based on that plant.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
That sounds a lot more fair than, what we've seen historically,
Yeah, for sure.
where those benefits often flow away from the community.
Exactly.
That held the
It's
knowledge.
it's a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
And it's not just about fairness.
Okay.
It's also about recognizing the value of that traditional knowledge
Right.
and incorporating it into our scientific research
Yeah.
and conservation practices.
Makes sense. So ethical seed collection is about respect, collaboration,
Mm-hmm.
and making sure those benefits are shared fairly.
Right.
But what about the environmental impact?
Yeah, that's another critical consideration.
Yeah.
So it's about adopting these sustainable collection practices
Okay.
that minimize disturbance to the forest
Right.
and ensure that enough seeds are left behind to support natural regeneration.
So you're taking what you need,
Right.
but not compromising the health of the forest.
Exactly. It's recognizing that we're not just collecting seeds, we're interacting with this complex web of life
Yeah.
that depends on those seeds for its survival.
This has been so eye-opening. We've gone from the nuts and bolts of collecting these seeds
Yeah.
to the ethical considerations that should really guide all of our actions.
Right.
It's a powerful reminder that science and ethics
Yeah.
really need to go hand in hand,
They do.
especially when we're talking about the future of our forests.
It really is a reminder that we are all interconnected.
Yeah.
And the choices that we make today have that ripple effect for generations to come.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful.
Yeah. And by embracing ethical and sustainable practices, we can ensure that these incredible ecosystems continue to thrive and provide for both people and the planet.
Absolutely. Well said. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive.
Oh, thanks for having me.
It's been fascinating. Into the world of tropical forest seed collection. And thank you all for listening. We'll see you next time.